Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated will be filming, recording, and photographing this event for use in Delta promotional videos, photography, advertisements, social media platforms, web pages, and other future Delta events as the case may be. Via continued participation in and by continuing to remain logged into this event, hereby acknowledges that participant may be photographed, filmed, or otherwise recorded while on the premises of the event. Grants Delta, its successors, assigns, and licensees irrevocable consent to include participants' name, likeness, photographic image, mannerisms, and voice or other recording in the production or for exploitation for any purpose whatsoever in any and all media now known or hereafter devised throughout the universe in perpetuity without compensation and or credit. Represents, warrants, and agrees that Delta holds and shall forever hold all display, publication, and ownership rights, licenses, and privileges to any and all media, whether in law or in equity, which may be ascertained, registered, or in any way utilized with respect thereto, and waives, releases, and transfer, as the case may be, any and all such rights, whether in law or equity, as may be necessary or required to effectuate Delta's establishment of ownership. Participant further agrees to abide by and comply with any and all terms of use and or additional participation rules as applicable and specified during relevant sections of the program, and acknowledges, understands, and agrees that violation of such participation rules shall result in legal recourse and disciplinary action.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. The Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated SonShine Committee welcomes you. My name is Felicia Jackson, and a candid conversation is going to be taking place regarding sons. Love and Sunshine, a conversation for moms with sons. Especially in this day and age, it is extremely difficult in raising our young men. We want them to be noble. We want them to be upright. After this conversation takes place, you may take away some good pointers to make some adjustments in your motherhood manual. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Linda Kemp.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to introduce tonight's moderator, LaShonda Bracey, who is a member of the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Sarah Bracey is CEO and president of HealthWorks, LLC, a training and course development firm. As a seasoned entrepreneur, she has worked with hundreds of clients and has built a solid reputation among federal and private sector employees and executives, as well as everyday individuals seeking to build and improve their portfolios. She was born and raised in Southwest Michigan, and she began honing her entrepreneurial skills at the age of 7 while doing hair and nails in her parents' home. At that young age, Sarah Bracey was creating client lists, delegating, and making connections in the real world while her peers were on the playground. She remained on the fast track through her college years, attaining a master's degree in training and development and course development. She continued to pave her own way for her personal and professional development. The result was a career that led to her consulting small business on government contracting and training full-time. She has become a sought-after speaker, coach, trainer, and author. One of her most important achievements in life was becoming a mom. She has one son, Miles Logan Bracey Hairston. I love that name. which in itself qualifies her to moderate tonight's event. I give you my Sarah LaShonda Bracy.
Thank you so much, Sora Kemp. I will, as we have this discussion before we get started, I will give you a little information about my good friend, Dr. Johnson. So I'm going to give you his bio. His is a lot longer and lengthier than mine. So bear with me. But Dr. Johnson, Dr. Tony D. Johnson, serves as the president and CEO for Captivate Perspectives and chancellor for the Institute for Lifelong Learning and Workforce Innovation. So in this role, he's responsible for planning, development, implementation of organizations' education and training, project management, operational and fiscal functions, and performance. He also implements and enforces policies and procedures of the organizations that will improve operational and financial effectiveness for those companies, communicates effectively, and establishes credibility throughout organizations as an effective individual, as well as develop solutions to business challenges. In some of his previous roles, he led the work for overseeing and planning implementation of workforce education programs, budgeting and finance, public relations, and coalition building. In addition, he has led public education policy, advocacy in the areas of early childhood, K through 12, at Promise Youth, workforce programs, and higher education. Dr. Johnson also has experience implementing accountability systems and has managed over 35 million in funds to support students, educators, overseeing programs that support college students, middle and high school students, children with special needs, and engaged stakeholders, and preparing students for success both within and beyond the classroom. Dr. Johnson began his career at an alternative education institution as a teacher, and since that time, he has worked in a wide range of leadership positions in education for over 20 years. He has a dual bachelor's degree in political science and criminal justice, and a master's of science in public administration, public policy, and a doctorate in education leadership, policy, and evaluation. Dr. Johnson has also served as the provost. Whoops, I lost my place. There we go. Dr. Johnson has also served as provost, chief academic officer, and vice president for partnerships, dean, career and technical education director, chief for state managed schools, associate director, senior director of programs and training, assistant vice president and chief of academic officer, interim deputy assistant superintendent, associate dean, senior education consultant, executive director, and the chief of school support, just to name a few. He has classroom-based experience and educational leadership. In addition, he has taught in the colleges of education and arts and in the schools of arts and sciences at Florida State University, Florida A&M University, George Washington University, Barry University, and a list of others. He actually lives here in the DC metro area, and one of his goals is making sure that African American males reach their goals and achievement. I give to you Dr. Tony Johnson.
Great. Thank you
That
so
was a
much, Dr.
mouthful.
Bracy. Next time I need to send you the brief version.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But we will start the conversation tonight, just kind of as you and I having a conversation or a discussion, as we often do, about brown and Black boys in our community. Those of you that are on the call, all of you are hopefully are mothers of sons and or advisors or some sort of parental guidance for sons. During our conversation and during our questions, if you have any questions for Dr. Johnson, please place them in the chat. I will try to catch them as they come through. And I know a couple other folks are tracking as well. All right, so let's get started. Dr. Johnson, first question.
Sure.
What inspired you to become a mentor for young Black boys, and how has that role impacted your life?
Well, thank you, Dr. Bracy. I'm not sure if I decided to be a mentor or if God told me that's what I would be. So as I was a teacher, there were so many Black males who, and I was a teacher at an alternative school. So there were so many Black males who came to my class either angry, confused, withdrawn, and just a number of, they were just very different than how I was as a student. So I decided that I needed to do two things. I needed to give them tough love, but unswerving support at the same time. So with that, the word got out that Dr. Johnson's class is a difficult class, but he loves you. So people were wanting to sign up for my class. They wanted to be in there. Moms and dads were saying, oh my gosh, I've never seen him this positive in his entire life. So for me, it was, I understood what it took to engage Black males from different backgrounds in a positive way in education. So since that time, I kind of made it my goal, even when I see them in the grocery store who may be younger than me, I might just start them in a conversation, the cashier, say, where you going to college, sir? And he might be like, and I just start the conversation because I think I am a son of an amazing Black mother who worked 2 jobs in the service industry. She took classes at the local vocational technical school, all to just have a better life for me. So when I was a kid, I was always committed to working hard so she didn't have to work as hard as I saw she did in my childhood. So I kind of want to remind Black males every time I have this conversation that your moms do love you. They may not have the right words to say all the time. It might come out, they yelling at you and that kind of thing, but it's coming from a centered place of love. And you have to always remember that and not take it as something adversarial. So I know I took your question one and I kept on, but I get excited.
No, that's good. I appreciate that because I've actually seen him stop young boys and give them the 3rd degree. So next question. What are some of the unique challenges that you see that young boys or boys of color face today? And how can us as mothers support them through those challenges, even if we don't recognize that they're challenges for them?
Sure. I think one of the big great things and negative things at the same time is social media, right? So social media is great in terms of it has allowed us to communicate with each other through expanded time and space. But one of the big negative things is I noticed that all youth, but I'm going to focus in on Black male youth, begin to compare themselves a lot to the perceived lives that they see other Black males are leading. So they want to appear to have more money, more girlfriends, more influence, more everything. And then it also weighs down on their mental health because in reality, some of them don't have these things that the people on social media don't have either, but they're portraying that they do. So what I always try to suggest to mothers is always reaffirm for your son that he is more than enough. Because I think social media will make him believe that he isn't enough and that he needs to do more, that he is too short, he weighs too much, his skin isn't perfect, and all of these other things that social media projects, but just constantly reminding him whether he is your son and he's a 5-year-old or he is your son and he is 47 years old, just always reminding him that he's more than enough and you love him unconditionally.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Again, folks, if you've got questions, please type them in the chat. I'm sure at some point our conversation will go left as it often does. In your experience, what are some of the key factors that contribute to the success and well-being of young Black boys?
Well, I think it's important to always be honest with young Black boys, right? So I think it's great to always definitely support them, tell them how much you love and care for them. But also, if your son has failed every math class he has ever taken, everyone, right? And he is now in the 7th grade and has never gotten anything higher than a D, be honest with him. Say, son, astrophysicism may not be for you, right? Let's look at some other options. So just always be honest with him because he will appreciate that. But I will also say, be careful because one of the most fragile things that I think in the world is the Black male ego at any age. So kind of just be careful on your word choice, because your word choice can be very important if he will embrace your feedback or if he will push back and kind of close down altogether. And the other thing is, and I know all of you do this really well, and for those who may not, advocacy. Always advocate for your son. Whether it's at school, after school programs. I remember I was bullied when I was in the 6th grade. I don't know, this other black man, he just decided he was going to bully me. He just bullied me so bad. He kicked me off the bicycle, beat me up. It was horrible. And I came home crying. Yeah, we never had that. I didn't tell you that story yet, Dr. Bracy. So I was so upset. And my mom, she turned their school out. You hear me? She was calling, she was trying to advocate for me over the phone. She came up there and had meetings, but one day she had enough. And when I tell you she turned it out, she turned it out. Not saying all of you need to turn it out, mothers, but it works. So after that instance, what I saw is that as strong and as much as she advocated for me, I also needed to advocate for myself. I took it upon myself, and I would just say I handled the bully situation after a year, and I no longer had it. And what was so interesting is we continued through middle school and went to high school, and this same bully in the 10th grade walked up to me, and he started crying in the middle of the hallway, and he said, "I'm so sorry of how bad I treated you when we were in the 6th grade. Can we be friends?" And for me, I was very hateful about how he did me in the 6th grade, so I had to do some internal processing. But for me, many years later, I just thought about how broken in many ways he may have been and things he may have involved, had gone through in his life. And maybe I embodied something that he wanted to be. Like, he was just so many things as a youngster I couldn't process at that time. But we're not going off topic, just advocacy. Advocate for your son, I think, is very, very critical. And I want to say one more thing on this, Dr. Brace, before we move on, is consistency. Be very consistent with Black males, because it is extremely important. I think one of the things that the military, not saying your sons go to the military, but I'm just making a correlation, why Black males do so well in the military is that it's consistent, right? You're going to get up at the same time. The expectations don't change. So the same thing in your households is be very consistent with them. The current society suggests that you don't have to be consistent. Things change. Be what you want to be. Label yourself what you want to label yourself. Change as the wind blows. But what we know as folks who are older is that success doesn't work that way. And to be successful, you have to have some consistency in your life, and you have to guide your life in a way that's very purposeful and intentional.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So from that, I gathered, be honest with your sons, but don't be brutally honest. I also gathered, be an advocate and be present. I think I do that pretty well. And the other one is keep them on track. We do run a tight ship over here. No games, no games, no games. There's a question in the chat.
Joke on your tight ship real quick. Ladies, one day I called Dr. Bracy because we always call each other for business things, and sometimes we have to just debrief about life. And I called her, and she texted me back, and she said, "Sorry, I missed your call. Me and Miles are in our weekly planning session." Miles is her son, and she says, "I'll call you back later." And I say, "Oh, I love it. I love planning sessions already. I love it."
Yeah, this is our Sunday evening routine because our schedules are so hectic. So I do have a question in the chat. How would you suggest we navigate the conversation with our sons that as Black people, we are often treated differently by society and as Black men? He's going to experience on a deeper level than even a Black woman's face.
So I believe a couple of things. One, start the conversation early. There's never too early of a stage to talk to Black males about race, racism, and classism in American society. It was built on it. It's supported by it. I recall very vividly in my 5th grade class, my teacher gave us a lecture of how there are 2 trajectories in society. And this is our last day of 5th grade before we went to middle school. She says, my amazing white students, you all are going to go forth and be lawyers, teachers, doctors, etc. And my Black students, you all are going to be for the service industry of the society. And your job is to help white America. And as you all can see, I'm not 50 something yet, right? So this wasn't, many, many years ago, but that kind of thinking and thought to 5th graders could really internalize in such a way that they believe that kind of thing. So I think it's important to have the conversation very early and continue to have the conversation. And also as things in social media percolates about things around racism and classism, have that conversation with him and have him to unpack it. And even if he responds and he's saying something like, I don't care about that, you know, we live in Fairfax County, we ain't like those poor Black people. Push the conversation, because being Black is not monolithic. It's not about your socioeconomic class. It's about how society views us and the ways in which he needs to navigate society to be successful and happy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Janae, I hope that answered your question. I have another question in the chat. How do moms handle the ego of their sons, especially when they are in their 20s?
Don't take it personal. He is 20 years old. He's full of himself. He's still slender, probably. He ain't got big yet. Like, but there's a lot of things. The little girls think he cute. So it's a lot of stuff going into play. So don't take it personal. And also know that in the old adage, and this too shall pass. So be very supportive, be very honest with them. But also tell him the same things that we would say in a business meeting. So let's say we had a business meeting and we have partners that come together and they start arguing in the boardroom about whatever have you. Remind him that this partnership is only as effective as you are also present and equally investing in it, so that we can move forward together. And I have so many accountability type of conversations with Black males. Like, I speak to them just like I do at work. And I tell you, the feedback that I get from them is much more positive than when you speak to them from an emotional posture. Like, if you say, Charles, why you always blah, 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 blah. Black males will tune that out. But if you talk to him just like you talk to folks in the boardroom and say, let's unpack what happened here. What I saw was blah, 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 blah. And what is your perspective of what you saw? And what is the turnaround plan we can have for this? Like, if you have that same conversation, your work conversation with your Black males, he will begin to have an accountability type of conversation as well. And I think it will move communication more effectively forward.
And I think I learned that because yelling gets neither one of us anywhere. Me frustrated and him tuned out. So yeah, we don't yell too much in this house. So that's a plus. How do you prepare, or how do we prepare our sons for the era of actually driving while Black?
Be honest with him that the likelihood of him coming out of driving and being pulled over, he can be killed. Tell him to not put his driver's registration in the glove box, put it on the side of the door. As he's being pulled over, take it out very quickly, even before the police officer pulls him over, and put it on the dashboard. Tell him to put both of his hands forward on the dashboard. And these things that I'm telling you folks is the same thing that I do, and I'm not a young Black male anymore. But it is an unfortunate truth that we have a higher likelihood of leaving that scene dead than alive. So the more that we can do to ensure that we leave that scene alive, and I can tell you the number of times that I've been pulled over and they intentionally try to antagonize me to begin to be confrontational and argumentative with them. I mean, I use the same language in the same tone that I'm using with all of you, and they'll yell at me. They banged on my window and just done a lot of things. But what I have always done is I stay prayerful and I stay calm, because my end goal is to leave this scene with this officer alive. So please remind your males that don't get emotionally connected to the negativity that some officers, and all officers aren't bad, but that some officers display, but remain focused on getting out of this situation alive. That is their primary goal.
I also recommend, if you've got your license and registration, putting it in the right above your visor and not on the side. And I know at one point we did have a program where I know we've done it at my church, but we had a group of boys where we walked them through actually what to do when you get stopped. I'm going to go back to my moderated questions, and now we'll go back to our questions in the chat momentarily. So, Dr. Johnson, how can mothers help instill a sense of pride and resilience in their sons, particularly in the face of systemic inequalities and social injustices?
Ooh, that's a loaded one there. Okay, so
I was working hard on these questions.
I see. I think there's a lot of things. One, constantly build his self-esteem up around everything, not just what he looks like, but how he thinks, who he is. And self-esteem is so much more than just one singular vein. And also encourage him to always critically analyze himself, to ask questions of himself before making decisions, during decisions, and be reflective after decisions. Because so often, so many great mothers, you all do this. Y'all are our thought. You all become our brain. Y'all unpack stuff for us. Y'all analyze it for us. Y'all give it all to us. But I want to shift that orientation to training and teaching us how to do that for ourselves. Because when you all are at work, at conferences, in Antigua Bay, having a good time, enjoying life, doing different things, we need to be able to analyze things for ourselves. And we want to be able to make quality decisions because you have taught us how to do that. So I really want to encourage you, and it doesn't matter the age of your son, whether he's a little guy, whether he's middle school, high school, or older, give him the tools to be able to think strategically and analytically. One of the things that I have heard some mothers do is they will criticize the decision making that the Black male makes, but not equip him with the way in which he needs to think through problems in order to get to positive solutions. And then the last thing I want to say on this before Dr. Bracy tells me I can't come back again, because I want to make sure I just want to do, is talk about inequality so much, because I think one of the things that is important is that young males who come from middle class socioeconomic backgrounds sometimes believe once they get into the larger society, they get surprised. Let me say that because they are insulated, because they come from parents who live in Prince George's County, in Virginia, in DC, and do well, that these things like driving while Black may not exist for them in their psyche. This thing around people are not going to give them an interview just because of the color of his skin. Like some of these things they're not going to see play out until later, but I think it's important to have these conversations with him earlier and say, baby, this is a beautiful house. Mom loves you to death, dad loves you to death, but I want to talk to you about the larger society and things that are playing out. Trayvon Martin might be from a lower socioeconomic background, but what happened to him could easily happen to you because of the negativity in society. And let's talk through that.
Yeah, I have that conversation about, I don't know what it is with young teenage boys and this, you want to put on a sweatshirt every day. I'm like, and a hooded sweatshirt. And I'm like, can I get a button? We've come to a compromise. I get a button down twice a week.
Yeah, can I say something on that too? Really quickly. One of the things I want to stress, as you see, I'm on the Zoom with a blazer, so y'all know how my orientation is around this thing, is that remind Black males that you want your sons to dress the way that they want to live the rest of their lives, and not dress just for comfort. Tell them comfort is great for when it's appropriate at home, going to the gym, and these kind of things. But I can tell you the number of, and you should share this with them, the number of internship opportunities they're going to get, the number of other opportunities they're going to get by interfacing with people, just merely by giving a more polished presentation, whether they're in school or anywhere else. Teachers have approached me about scholarships and that kind of thing, just because of the way that I carried myself. And also remind Black males that don't be like everybody else. Everybody else loud in the class, they got nothing to do with you. Everybody else is cutting up because there's a substitute is there. That has nothing to do with you. But always stay focused. And I think that's the thing. Stay focused, stay focused, stay focused.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, what advice would you give to mothers in helping their sons navigate the stereotypes, and the societal expectations placed on young Black males?
I think again, open conversation, starting at an early age and continuing that conversation throughout life. If you see a video on social media that messages something important about social injustice and inequities, pull it up, show it to them, have a conversation with them about it. But also, if he says something that is contrary to your value system around it, don't be quick to say, Leonard, that's stupid. Why did you say that? That doesn't make any sense. But actually use terms to help him unpack and process that. Like, for instance, Leonard, explain to me why do you feel the way that you do of what you just shared about the video? How about I offer you a different perspective to consider and tell me what you think about that? So use those kind of terms. And I had Dr. Bracy blessed me with another opportunity to present to some mothers about 6 months ago. And one of the things I shared with them is one of the ways that lawyers are the most successful lawyers are so successful is because they do not make the other person feel intimidated, and they ask questions in a way that is comforting for people to be honest. And I tell mothers to do that same thing. Ask questions in a comforting, non-judgmental way. Now, we're human, right? So I'm not telling you if he says something that's real left field and you like, Lord have mercy, me and his dad did not raise him like this. I don't know who child this is. Now, you might think that. That may be true, right? But the way in which you pose your questions, make sure it doesn't come across that way, because you always want him to be honest. And particularly as he goes off to college or leave and when you become an empty nester and he moves on with life, you want him to always be honest with you, even if the honesty is something that you don't necessarily sit well with you. You want him to be honest so that you can always have that open dialogue.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. I've got a question in the chat. It says, I'm not a mother, but I work at a program with young men on probation and or court involved. What advice do you have for providers who give support to mothers who may not possess the tools or have the experience to help their young teens progress and get out of the system? That hits close to home.
Absolutely. So I have worked in corrections education, as Dr. Bracy knows, for quite some time, both the juvenile justice and adults. One of the things that I love that I think is a salient theme across with most mothers is, irrespective of socioeconomic background and education, most mothers want the best for their sons. Now, whether she knows what to do to make that happen or not, may be open to interpretation, but most mothers do want the best for their sons. So I think there's a couple of things that needs to happen. One, I think it's important, even, and I tell this to even justice involved young men and women, is that mothers need to help them to create a North Star, right? So they need to have something that's important to them that they want to focus on, and they want to create the types of experiences and behaviors that will allow them to get there. Whether that is they want to have a great life with a big house and a nice car, whether that means they want to go to college, whether that means they want to become an auto mechanic, but have a North Star. And because I think what has happened so much in society is that young people are just out here just spinning. They don't really have anything they're focused on trying to achieve. They're just living day to day. And social media doesn't help, because social media tells them, take all of your griefs to social media on live and talk to people who know nothing about you in hopes that it will help improve your life. And we know that that is not the case. So to Ms. Tillman, I will say that help mothers to help them to create a North Star. Try to actively find a mentorship program for the justice involved youth. Have mothers to create a network of support amongst themselves. I don't mean to bring this up, but I think it's a little timely. If any of you saw the Jeffrey Dahmer movie, of course, it was a very horrific movie. However, one thing that was very positive that came out of that is that the mothers became a safety net for each other. They went to trial together. They became friends after those horrific events, and they began to be a support system with each other. So having a support system of mothers is very important, even justice involved mothers. And the last thing I want to say on that is, help mothers to remember to talk very calmly, even if they are upset with their sons, because he knows he's messing up. He knows he is involved in the justice system. He knows he has made a lot of mistakes. Mothers get very frazzled because they don't know how to help him to get out of that situation. But staying open with communication with him, continuing to remind him how much he is loved and that there is positiveness on the other side of his justice involvement.
Thank you for that. Another question in the chat. To what extent do you believe the lack of father figures in a young man's life has an impact on their development, being emotional, mental, or physical? And what unique pieces of advice can you provide to single mothers raising their sons without father figures?
Great question. So I was a son raised without a father figure, and the statistics show that most Black males are raised by single female-headed households in the country. So I think it's important to seek out a male figure in his life. And it should probably be multiple male figures in his life, whether that's a man at church, a man at the job, a man at your poker game, wherever you see a positive Black male to pour into your son. I think that's really important because there's many things he'll need to learn. And I think that it's great that he learned some of them from you, but I think it's great that a male can teach it to him as well. I was so touched that Dr. Bracy and I were at a conference in Las Vegas about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and she allowed me to teach her son how to tie a tie at the restaurant table. And it is those experiences that I think are important that males can pour into. And I think it's for a lot of males who already have children or who do not have children, it doesn't matter. If he is somebody who has the propensity to care for your son and has something to teach him, I think you should approach him for having some support in your son's life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can you share a personal story or experience that illustrates the positive impact a mother can have on her son's development and success?
Sure. I'll use my own mother. So my mother, my work ethic, and Dr. Bracy, she'll tell you, I'm walking out of the office at 10 o'clock on a Friday or a Saturday night. My mother worked really, really hard. She worked in kitchens in the daytime, in hospitals and schools. She would work in after-school programs in the evenings. She would be taking classes from dental hygienists. You just pick it. When the enrollment season opened, she was hopping onto the next class and taking the next certification. So what was so positive for me now, many years later being an adult, is she did much more for me by illustrating and showing and modeling those behaviors that I should have more than anything she could ever say. Seeing her laying across her bed with her book open and her highlighter, studying after working 2 shifts at 2 different jobs and then falling asleep on her book, showed me the importance of, it doesn't matter what your age is, it's important that if you're focused on your goal, to work really hard to achieve it. Then she would jump up early in the morning, her alarm went off at 5 a.m. and do it all over again. And I think we want to remind Black males that this being a Superman is important. Like, society wants us to believe that, there's a lot of equity now, and, you don't have to do those many things. Your parents are doing well in this beautiful, nice house they have in Fairfax and all of these things, but you still have to work hard. There's no true, there's a nice house in Fairfax now. So that you still have to work hard, and there's no replacement for working hard. And to remind Black males of that. And even if they're struggling academically in school, still stay in the fight and still work very hard.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I am going to shift it a little bit, but question, are there any suggestions as to how to navigate handling young sons that have experienced a traumatic experience or have had traumatic experiences?
Yes, counseling. I think it's so important. There's a lot of data out that more Black males have been abused physically and sexually than the data can even capture, because they keep it within themselves and don't share it. And I think that it's important to both open up the conversation with yourself and your son, but also open up the conversation for them with these male figures who are in their lives if you are a single mother, and also seek out counseling supports as well. And also, counselors are just like any other service. Try them out. If they are a counselor that isn't working effectively with your son, it is totally okay to change counselors, because you want your son to be able to unpack these traumatic experiences. Because what we know about traumatic experiences is that they can have lifelong detrimental impacts if not addressed. And that can be played out with mental health, suicidal thoughts, the way he interfaces with his future relationships, both romantically and platonic relationships. So it's going to be very important, anger issues and a number of things. So I think counseling is very, very important. And also spirituality is important. If he should believe in something. And I'm not going to, go on what that something is, because I know society, we have a lot of belief systems out here, but he should believe in something, whatever that something is, to help push him and promote him to be his best self.
Tell him to not stop watching podcasts, huh? All right. I have another question in the chat from Ms. Arrington. What is the average age for our sons to mature? I've been told it may happen in their 30s.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't get it really, really together to then, unfortunately. We have a number of, I wish I had a better answer. We have a number of life cycles as Black males. And for many of us, it's not until we make a lot of mistakes in our 20s, I believe, that our 30s, we are a better version of ourselves. And what I've seen for Black women is earlier, that I see more young Black girls make those life decisions between 14 to maybe 16 or 17-ish, and are more clear on the direction they want their life to head, and are making much more positive choices a little earlier on. But what I've seen more for Black males is that it's still a testing the waters kind of thing, trial and error throughout the 20s, and then the 30s are more of a more focused Black male. But I would say to try to promote that schedule happening a little earlier is involve him in things that matter. One of the amazing things that I know about Delta Sigma Theta is you all do an amazing job with community service. All of your sons should be involved in something. They should be giving out turkeys on Thanksgiving to low-income communities. They should go to a homeless shelter involved. They should really get involved in seeing the different lives that people have in the world, and seeing how their contribution matters to them. And I think what I have seen is when Black males are a part of community service, even reluctantly, some of them, the outcome of being able to unpack the experience and what happens allows them to sometimes be able to take their own life much more serious, and to begin to make better choices as well. And I think going back to one of the previous participants stated about being a single mother in the Black male figure, is also encamping him around other Black males too, who have some positive experiences and positivity as mentors that they can pour into them.
Thank you for that. There was another question I just lost. Okay, there we go. How should we cope with our sons' questions about their own sexual identity?
I think the best way to cope with your son's sexual identity is to discuss it, but find out who he wants to discuss it with, because sometimes talking to your mother that you might be drawn to the same gender may not be the most comforting conversation he may want to have. So find out, son, in terms of questioning your sexual identity, is this something that you want to talk to me about as your mother? Would you prefer to talk to your uncle, your aunt, or your mentor? So kind of find out who he wants to maybe broker this conversation with, and allow him to have that conversation. The data also shows that the current generation is the largest generation of gay, bisexual, and questioning of any generation previously. So this is a very popular topic, not just among Black males, but among all young people in the current generation. So just creating an avenue for communication, because one thing we saw in the 80s and 90s was a lot of Black males not being able to have the conversation when they're questioning their sexual identity, and therefore leading a down low lifestyle, which also opened up a lot of health implications because they were making poor sexual decisions because of it being shrouded in secrecy. So I think it's really important to be able for them to have an open dialogue with someone about their sexual identity. And then the last thing on this topic of sexual identity is that as much as young people sometimes believe that things are so finite, like I got to make a decision about this thing today, that life changes and evolves. And the decision they might make today around sexual identity might be a different decision they might want to make 3 years later. So what we don't want is these tremendous suicide rates to continue, because Black males are battling so many things internally, whether it's sexual identity, feeling they're not enough, and other pressures of society. So just making sure we have that open dialogue is important.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Dr. Johnson, what are some effective ways for mothers to encourage and support their sons in pursuing their passions and interests, especially in fields where Black males are underrepresented?
I think it's important, Dr. Bracy, that there's exposure. I think it's important that if you have colleagues who work in that particular field, to see if they can have a day where your son can maybe just shadow them for an hour or two at the office. If there's a particular industry that you do not have a connection with, talk to the manager and say, my son is very interested in this particular field. I really don't know anyone in this field. Is it okay for him to talk to some of your employees to kind of gauge what this working in this field is like? Because I think it's important to ensure. So a couple of things we got to talk to. So schools, I believe they don't do such a great job as they used to do about career development and career education. So I think it's important that Black males understand the earning potential of certain careers, understand what it's really like to be in that career, and not be romanticized around that career based upon what the media shows what it's like to be in that career. For instance, whether it's drug dealers or party promoters and all these other things, it seems so exciting when you see it on social media, but they don't pay well. It's a difficult job. You're around a lot of people in violence. So there's a lot of stuff that some young males aren't really clear of what it's really like. So really trying to get them to have discussions and see in action what their career really looks like and its earning potential.
All right. I think you kind of covered this question, but I will ask it in a different way. How can mothers help their sons develop a strong sense of identity and self-worth in a society that often undervalues or marginalizes young Black males?
Always remind him verbally, send him affirmative text messages, send him them little hearts, and in the text, do all of that stuff. Just be so. Let me tell you, my mom loves me so much. She still send me all that stuff every morning. She leaves me voicemail. My mom loves me so much, as she did when I was 4 years old. Like, it hadn't changed. She has been so consistent. And you've met her, Dr. Bracy. She sees me, she just lights up. So. So even if your son believes, well, he gets this little cool pose as he gets a little older and act like that's not what he into, every male, Black male, wants to be loved, valued, and appreciated. So don't diminish being all warm and fuzzy with him because now he want to be cool and stuff. Still continue that because it matters.
And I believe that's true. Even for my 15-year-old, sometimes he act like he don't like me, but then sometimes he's just like, "Can I get a hug?" And I'm like, "Oh, what just happened? You didn't like me 5 minutes ago." But I get it. What role can positive male role models play in the lives of young Black boys, and how can mothers help facilitate these relationships? And I do actually, once you answer this question, I want to go back to a conversation that you and I have had previously about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important to identify. Did I freeze? Like I froze. Can you hear me, everybody?
We can hear you, but you
Oh, okay.
froze.
Okay. I think it's important to ensure that you find, I see my picture went off. You can still hear me though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll keep talking. I don't know what happened to the photo. Sorry, everybody. I think it's important to identify male role models to support Black males. And I want to be clear. I think some of the best role models are really, really busy Black men. So as you approach them, don't make them feel like this is another task they have to do, right?
Well, you're
Because if they
taking my
feel,
other question.
I'm sorry. Don't make them feel that this is a task that they have to do, but instead ensure that it is about their schedule and when they can provide supports is what you need. Whether they are doing text message check-ins, where they can see them once every 2 months. It is you want to work with his schedule to support your son.
Right. So one of the other questions I had, and I know we talked about this before, again, the ideal people that we want to be role models for our children are, again, extremely successful and extremely busy. So they don't always have, the time that we think that that they should have to be a role model. So how do you gauge, or how do you help mothers tailor their expectations when it comes to role models for young Black boys?
Recognizing that some of the role models are extremely busy, and when you approach them, share with them that you do not want to overtax their already busy schedule, but you would like to see when they do have some time, how can you engage them with your son and make it convenient. Sometimes you might need to bring your son up to his office just to sit there for 30 minutes to an hour to talk to him. It might mean that you might have to meet him at the Starbucks because he's in the middle of 2 meetings. So whatever you can do to make it convenient for the mentor, the better. Because what you also want is you want a lifelong bond between your son and the mentor, and not a quick one and done where they may see each other 2 or 3 times and then the mentor drops off and never is responding again. That's definitely not what you want.
Right. And I think another key for mothers to understand with sons is, just because you don't think they're talking to their mentors, they actually are. So a great example of that is our Sora Essie Miller and Galen. Galen talks to Dr. Johnson and she's like, Galen hasn't talked to him. And I'm like, yes, he has. So your sons will establish that relationship. We all know boys don't text and pick up the phone as much as we do, but just know if they identify that person that is a role model, they are reaching out to them. And again, they communicate a little bit differently. So, what are some strategies for addressing and breaking down the barriers that young Black boys may face in the education system? And how can mothers advocate again for their sons and their academic success?
Sorry, Bracy, Dr. Johnson had to be let back in, so I'm not sure if he lost connection.
Uh-oh. Whoops. Okay. Give him a second. Hope you are enjoying the conversation. Again, if you've got questions while we are waiting on Dr. Johnson to rejoin us, please put them in the chat. Great questions this evening. Thank you guys so much. Let's see. And also, while we're waiting, can I get, like, in the chat, type how many boys you have. Is it one? Is it two? Are you a mentor? Are you a coach? Or are you a counselor? I believe in interaction.
Okay. Hello,
All
Dr.
right.
Brace. I'm back, but for some reason my camera is not. So I'm sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. All right. So that question that I was asking when you got disconnected, what are some strategies for addressing and breaking down the barriers that young Black boys may face in the education system? And how can mothers advocate for their sons' academic success?
So there are two pieces there. One is to ensure that there is ongoing advocacy for your son in school, because Black males are overrepresented in special education. I was personally retained in kindergarten because my teacher told my mother that she didn't feel that I had the emotional capacity to deal with the first grade. And then, of course, you all can imagine what happened in the third grade when standardized testing occurred. I was not a special education student. I was more on the gifted and talented spectrum, but it was misidentified 2 years earlier. So I think it's really important to continue to advocate for your son. And not saying that all of our Black male sons are on the gifted and talented spectrum, but you want to make sure that he has the most high quality experiences in education, and that teachers give him unswerving support as he matriculates through the K-12 system.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So just a couple more questions and then we will wrap up. I think we talked about this already, but again, how can mothers promote open and honest communication with their sons, particularly around the issues of race, privilege, and personal safety? Did we lose you again? Oh,
No, can you
there you
repeat the
go.
question one more time? I'm sorry, I was trying to work on my camera and I messed up. One more time, please.
How can mothers promote an open and honest communication with their sons, particularly around the issues of race, privilege, and personal safety?
Well, I think it's a couple of things, going back to ensuring that Black males are clear that society, in terms of its socioeconomic makeup and class system, how it interplays in both a positive way for them, but also how that dynamic is going to have less of an influence as they get older and are part of the larger society is important. I think it's also important for them to understand that as they get older, and they interface with other people, that everybody isn't going to have their best intentions at heart. So if your son is driving a S-Class Mercedes and he is 19 years old, he needs to be clear of who his friend selections are, and everybody may not have his best of intentions at heart, and he needs to be very, very clear about that, and always stay vigilant to ensure that people aren't just calling him when they need a ride, or they're not just engaging him because of the access to resources that he has, but that they really are interfacing with him because of who he is.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And as we are getting close to wrapping up, I've got two or three good questions, but there is another question in the chat. Dr. Johnson, do you get questions from young males about dating outside of their race? There's a question in the chat.
Not as much as I used to. I would say probably about 15 years ago or so, there were a lot of Black males who would say that I can't bring a white woman or any other race home because my mother would not permit that. But I think as society has changed so many times, I think there are more Black males who are more open to being honest about their attraction to a race that is not Black. But I also think that because I'm having a conversation with another Black mother right now, her son, is that remind Black males too that they may be surrounded by a particular racial group more often right now because of their education or their community, but they should not stay focused on just who's around you, because as they get older, you're going to be around so many different people. And I think it's easy to kind of fall into the, all right, let me just date who lives in the community and who I go to school with, because that's easy, rather than let me be more open, and let them know too that as much as society has changed, that some things have stayed the same, and it's not going to necessarily be an easy life if they decide to date outside of their race. And not that it's and I'm not saying it's taboo, but I'm just saying American society is a mixed bag, as we all know, and just remind them of that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. So one of our last two questions, What resources or support systems do you recommend for mothers who are seeking guidance in raising and empowering their young Black boys? We talked a little bit about mentorship. There are programs throughout the DMV area, but any that you recommend?
Well, I think that first, platforms like this is amazing because I think it creates such a great dialogue to have around this important topic of success strategies for Black males. I am a member of 100 Black Men of Prince George's County, but there are a number of mentorship programs I think is important and I'm also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, so the Kappa League, as well as, there are other fraternities that have amazing mentorship programs as well, I think is important. And at the end of the day, I think it's important and you do a great job at this, Dr. Bracy, is inundate him with experiences. Dr. Bracy can be taking Miles to the Kennedy Center on Saturday, and then he's playing soccer on Sunday, and then he's building a robot on Wednesday. So inundate him with positive experiences. So always be on the lookout for programs and the summer is a great time as well, because a lot of the universities also offer a lot of STEM and other type of supplemental instructional programs as well to get him involved in. So really, I think get him involved in so many things. And the last thing I want to say on this topic, Dr. Bracy, is that we are in a very unique region in that there are so many conferences that come here. And even if your son doesn't have to be in a profession to attend a conference, right? So if him and another friend of his and the registration, is, I don't know, $50 or something like that, get the two of them connected to go to the conference. Because one thing at conferences is older Americans like ourselves, we love to see young people, and we'll walk up to them and just start a conversation to see how we can support them. So please don't eliminate the idea of conferences because they're not in a particular career field or because they're not old enough yet. There are so many conferences that, as you know, they're in hotels, they're in the convention centers, in so many places. And the conference can be 3 days, but he could just go for a couple of hours of the experience, possibly, if he has other things going on with him. But I think that's another great opportunity as well.
Thank you for that. And as we wrap, one final question. What message of hope or encouragement would you like to share with the mothers who are raising young Black boys in today's world? And that's it. I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Thank you for that. So I think the message is brief. 1, you are enough, mothers. 2, your sons are enough. And 3, keep effective communication. Please allow him to be able to be honest with you. I want you to be honest with him, but please try to be as calm as you can when communicating with him on topics that shake you and get you very upset and rattled, because the calmer you are, the more traction you will be able to have with him. I am so excited to be a part of this amazing Love Your Sunshine conversation with Delta Sigma Theta. I would love to come back for the future if possible. And even if you want me to come and have a roundtable discussion with your sons in person, I'm more than happy to do that as well. You are amazing women, and I want to thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. That concludes our Q&A session. Madam President.
Okay, well, this has been truly awesome. I'm hoping that we can carry this dialogue further the next time we meet. And I want to thank you all for attending our SonShine program. And just to give a little context, 2 years ago, the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, we revived our Embody program. Embody, EMBODI, stands for Empowering Males to Build Opportunities and Developing Independence. The Embody events are open to parents, young men, and boys. However, many of our attendees have been mothers. And the mothers have been asking very thought-provoking questions just like this evening. And so we thought we would create a program just for mothers. Our chapter may be one of just a very few who have a program like this. And this one is specifically made for our Fairfax County Alumni Chapter mothers and our community. I want to thank Dr. Bracy for moderating. I want to thank Dr. Johnson for providing us with resources and information to increase our effectiveness uh, as we work on our parenting skills, along with strengthening our relationships with our sons. We appreciate that you've taken the time to join us today. I'm so very happy that we recorded this session. We'll be able to share this important information with others on our YouTube channel. So please point those who have not had the opportunity to be with us this evening to our YouTube channel as soon as it's posted. I'd like to thank Felicia Jackson, the chair of the SonShine Committee, and the SonShine Committee members for helping us navigate our conversations for mothers with sons. And thank you to our participants again for joining us. It really means a lot to have you here with us. You've had some really great questions this evening. If you feel comfortable, please share with us in the chat where you're joining us from this evening. Just a shout out from where you are. We appreciate the opportunity to do these events virtually. That's one thing about the pandemic that has taught us that we can reach a broader audience. So if you feel comfortable, place in the chat where you're calling in from. And please remember, I believe there's a survey. Is there a survey this evening? If not, we'll get you a survey. Yes, there's a link to the evaluation form in the chat. And please fill out that survey evaluation. Your responses help us to focus on the effectiveness of our programs. And so we want to make sure that we're bringing to you the things that you really need. And lastly, if you know a high school senior male in the Fairfax County, Virginia area, our chapter awards book scholarships for high school males. So take a look at our website for more information, and you'll find information about our scholarships for senior girls there as well. And please visit us on social media. We will leave the line open for a few minutes. We'll repost, make sure that the evaluation link is available. But with that, again, thank you so much for your participation and have a very good evening. Good night.